The night Marcus Chen bet $50 that Daniel couldn't make the quiet librarian smile, Daniel realized that sometimes the biggest gambles in life aren't the ones people make about you, but the ones you make on yourself. Daniel Reeves was 41 years old, a furniture restorer who worked out of a converted garage workshop 3 blocks from the Westbrook Public Library. He had been divorced for 2 years from a woman who loved the idea of a creative partner until creativity started looking too much like sawdust and uncertainty. He wasn't bitter, just tired. He spent most evenings alone, refinishing chairs that other people had given up on. The library had become his Thursday night ritual. He would arrive around 7, when the building was nearly empty, and sit at the corner table near the architecture section with a coffee and a travel mug and whatever restoration manual he was working through that week. The head librarian worked the evening desk. Her name was Claire Novak, and in the 6 months Daniel had been coming to this library, he had never once seen her smile. She was 43, according to the staff directory posted near the circulation desk that Daniel had glanced at exactly once. She wore her dark hair pulled back in a low bun that always looked like it had been assembled in about 4 seconds. Her sweaters were oversized, her jeans practical, and she moved through the stacks with the efficiency of someone who had memorized the Dewey Decimal System before most people learned cursive. She was sharp when she needed to be, precise when she checked out books, and she had a way of looking at people that suggested she could read them faster than anything on the shelves. Daniel had spoken to her maybe a dozen times. She had recommended a book on Japanese joinery that changed the way he thought about corner joints. She had once told him that his coffee smelled better than the library coffee, which was the closest thing to a compliment he had ever heard her deliver. And she had never, not once, smiled. Marcus worked in IT 2 floors above the library in the same municipal building. He was loud, well-meaning, and incapable of letting anything remain uncommented upon. He had started joining Daniel at the library on Thursdays about a month ago, mostly to people watch and text his girlfriend under the table. Last Thursday, Marcus had leaned over and whispered that Claire Novak looked like she had been personally disappointed by every human being she had ever met. Daniel had told him to keep his voice down. Marcus grinned. $50 says you can't make her smile before the end of the month? Daniel set his pencil down. I'm not taking that bet. Because you know you'd lose. Because it's not a game. But Marcus had already pulled out his wallet and set 2 20s and a 10 on the table between them like it was a poker hand. $50. You've got 2 weeks. Make her smile. Actual smile, not customer service smile. I'll know the difference. Daniel looked at the money, then at Marcus, then across the room toward the circulation desk where Claire was scanning returned books with the focus of someone defusing a bomb. He didn't take the bet. But he also didn't give the money back. The following Thursday, Daniel arrived 10 minutes earlier than usual. The library was still mostly empty. Claire was shelving books in the poetry section, working her way down the row with a cart that had one wheel that squeaked every 3 feet. Daniel walked past her twice before he worked up the nerve to stop. "Excuse me," he said. She turned, holding a slim volume of Mary Oliver. "Yes? I finished the joinery book you recommended. I wanted to say thank you. It helped." Claire nodded once. "Good." She turned back to the shelf. Daniel stood there for another 3 seconds, waiting for something, though he had no idea what. Then he walked back to his table, sat down, and opened his notebook. Marcus arrived 20 minutes later, took one look at Daniel's face, and started laughing. "That bad?" I thanked her for a book recommendation. And she said good. Marcus shook his head. "You're going to lose this bet so hard." Daniel hadn't agreed to the bet, but he also hadn't stopped thinking about it. By the second Thursday, Daniel had a plan. He brought a small wooden box he had just finished restoring, cedar with brass hinges, about the size of a paperback novel. It was the kind of piece he usually sold online, but this one had come out particularly well. The grain was clean, the finish smooth, and when you opened it, it smelled like a forest. He waited until Claire was back at the desk, then approached with the box in his hands. "I made this," he said, setting it on the counter. "I thought you might like it, for bookmarks or cards or whatever." Claire looked at the box, then at Daniel, then back at the box. She ran one finger along the edge of the lid, testing the fit of the hinge. When she opened it, she leaned in slightly, and Daniel watched her inhale. "You made this," she said. "I restore furniture. Sometimes I build small things." She closed the box carefully, her hands precise. "This is beautiful work. You can keep it if you want." Claire looked at him for a long moment, and Daniel felt the weight of being read cover to cover. Then she said, "Why?" It was the kind of question that didn't have a safe answer. "Because you recommended a good book," Daniel said. "And because I wanted to." She picked up the box, held it for another moment, then set it on the shelf behind the desk. "Thank you." No smile. But her voice had changed, softened just slightly around the edges. Marcus was waiting at the table when Daniel returned. "Well?" I gave her a box I made. Did she smile? "No. You've got 1 week left." Daniel didn't answer. He wasn't thinking about the bet anymore. He was thinking about the way Claire had tested the hinge, like she understood what it meant to make something that fit together correctly. The third Thursday, Claire wasn't at the desk. A younger woman with a name tag that said AMY was working the evening shift. Daniel felt the floor drop out from under him in a way that seemed completely disproportionate to the situation. He sat at his usual table, opened a book he didn't read, and told himself it didn't matter. Marcus showed up late, looking pleased with himself. Guess what I found out? I don't want to know. Claire Novak was engaged 4 years ago. Guy was some corporate attorney. Called it off 6 weeks before the wedding because he said she was too serious and he needed someone who knew how to have fun. Daniel closed the book. Where did you hear that? Amy. I asked her why Claire never smiles. She told me the whole story. You shouldn't have asked. You're welcome, Marcus said. Now you know what you're dealing with. Daniel looked toward the desk where Amy was cheerfully checking out a stack of romance novels for an older woman in a red coat. He thought about Claire opening the cedar box, the way her hands had moved over the wood like she was reading it. He thought about what it must feel like to be told you were too serious, as if seriousness were a defect instead of a choice. I'm not dealing with anything, Daniel said. And the bet's off. Marcus laughed. You're giving up? I'm saying it was a bad idea. You've got 1 week. I don't care. But when Daniel left that night, he stopped at the desk and asked Amy when Claire would be back. Tomorrow, Amy said brightly. She had a dentist appointment. The fourth Thursday, Claire was back. Daniel arrived with a book he had ordered online, a first edition field guide to native trees that he had found on a rare book site for more money than he wanted to admit. He had wrapped it in brown paper and tied it with string because anything else felt wrong. He set it on the desk in front of her. Claire looked at the package, then at him. What's this? It's for you. You don't have to open it now. Why are you giving me things? It was a fair question. Daniel had been asking himself the same thing for 2 weeks. Because I like the way you think about books, he said. And because I don't think you get thanked enough for the work you do here. Claire picked up the package. She didn't open it. She just held it, the same way she had held the box. Then she said, I've been waiting for you to try. Daniel blinked. Try what? To make me smile. Marcus made that bet 2 weeks ago at full volume right in front of the biography section. This library has excellent acoustics. Daniel felt heat crawl up the back of his neck. I told him it wasn't a game. But you kept coming back. I kept coming back because I wanted to. Claire looked at him for a long time. Then she smiled. It wasn't a small smile. It wasn't customer service. It was the kind of smile that suggested she had been holding it in reserve for years, waiting for the exact right moment to deploy it. You're going to win the bet, she said. I don't care about the bet. Good. Because I'm keeping the box and the book. And if you're smart, you'll ask me to get coffee when my shift ends in 40 minutes. Daniel felt the entire library tilt sideways. Are you serious? I'm always serious, Claire said. That's the whole problem, according to my ex-fiancé? Are you asking or not? I'm asking. Good. There's a diner 2 blocks south. I'll meet you there at 9. Daniel walked back to his table. Marcus looked up from his phone, grinned, and slid the $50 across the surface. I heard that whole thing, Marcus said. You're a legend. Daniel pushed the money back. I'm not taking it.
Why not?
You won. Because it wasn't about winning. At 9 o'clock, Daniel sat in a booth at the diner with 2 cups of coffee growing cold on the table. Claire arrived exactly on time, still wearing the same oversized sweater, her hair still clipped up badly. She sat down across from him and wrapped her hands around the mug. I opened the book in my car, she said. And? It's perfect. How did you know? I pay attention. Claire smiled again, smaller this time, but no less real. Most people don't. They talked until the diner closed at 11. Claire told him about the engagement, about the attorney who had wanted her to be lighter, funnier, easier. She told him about the months after, when she had decided that if being serious was a flaw, she would rather be flawed than perform for someone else's comfort. Daniel told her about his divorce, about the woman who had loved the idea of an artist until the artist turned out to be a person who worked with his hands and came home tired. I'm not easy, Claire said, when they were standing in the parking lot beside her car. I don't want easy, Daniel said. I want real. She looked at him the way she had looked at the cedar box, like she was testing the fit. Then she said, I'd like to see your workshop sometime. Any time. Tomorrow? Tomorrow works. She kissed him then, quickly like she was making a decision before she could talk herself out of it. When she pulled back, she said, For the record, I've been waiting for someone to try for a very long time. I just needed it to be the right person. 6 months later, Marcus threw an engagement party for his girlfriend at a rented event space with too many string lights and not enough chairs. Daniel and Claire arrived together. Claire wore a dark green dress and had left her hair down. People kept staring at her, trying to figure out if she was the same woman who worked the reference desk. Marcus cornered Daniel near the punch bowl. I still can't believe you pulled that off. I didn't pull anything off. I just showed up. With handmade gifts and first edition books? Daniel shrugged. I pay attention. Claire appeared at his elbow, holding 2 glasses of wine. She handed one to Daniel, then turned to Marcus. He's better at it than you'd think. Marcus grinned. I'm taking credit for this, you know. I made the bet. You made a mistake, Claire said. Daniel corrected it. A year after that, Daniel proposed in his workshop on a Sunday morning in October. Claire had started spending weekends there, reading in the corner chair while Daniel worked. He had built her a bookshelf, custom fitted to the wall of her apartment, and he had hidden the ring inside the cedar box he had given her the first week. When she opened it, she didn't cry. She just looked at the ring, then at him, and said, "I've been waiting for you to ask. I've been working up the nerve." "You're careful. I don't want to break anything." Claire stood, crossed the workshop, and kissed him in the middle of the sawdust and the unfinished chairs. For the record, she said, "I'm not made of glass." They were married 4 months later in the library after hours, surrounded by books and the people who mattered. Claire smiled the entire time. So here's the question. What would you have done if someone made a bet about you and the person you were trying to connect with found out? And have you ever been told you were too much of something, too serious or too quiet or too careful, only to find someone who loved you because of it, not in spite of it? Tell me your story in the comments. If you liked this one, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.